What's up? What is up, people? How is it going? Holy. You know, they always say absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? What do you think? You guys feel like you like me more or less since I last streamed? I'll be honest, this is the most I've been messaged since I have not streamed after a period of time. I've never felt the pressure like this. You guys are on my... you're on my ass. For sure. Pause. But here I am. I'm in the flesh. We're live. We're back. What have you guys been doing? What have you been up to? I feel like I need to reacquaint myself. Like, what have you guys been watching? That's always I always like to ask that. What have you guys been watching while I've been gone? Anything interesting? Anything good? Let me know. Let me know. Let's see. Just got a message I had to read. Okay, hold up. Pause. What's up, Mick, Cam Jam, Jeff Kane? How's it doing? How's it going? A couple fish. How's it going? Scotty, how's it doing? Of course, Cheryl. Nice to see you again. Outside in Aquatics said, did you see those pink longfin zebra daniels at my stream today? I did not. I'll have to check those out in a bit. JP Jeffries, you're getting the stream you've been harassing me for. Something Fish Alaska. I already said Mick, but I'll say Mick again because he's been messaging me some of the most. Scotty said I almost had to watch Father Fish to keep me entertained. See, that's why I can't be gone for long periods of time, because you guys are going to have to resort to watching just absolute garbage. You know what I mean? Like, I've abandoned you. Like, that's why I always ask what you guys watch, because one, I need to know if there's anything good, but then two, if it's something bad, then that's motivation for me not to stop this long again, because I'm like, oh my gosh. Because I didn't stream, Scotty had to watch Father Fish. Like, what have I done? You know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh. Camden said I've been staying off YouTube lately. Too much drama. Where's the drama on YouTube? What drama are you talking about? Vic said we've all been watching Discus North. All right. Live fact check. We've all been watching Discus North. Okay. But you know what? Well, I'll keep the yapping shortly commencing up for a second because we haven't started yet. Let me fact check Mick real quick just to start the stream. He already gonna be lying? Like, is that what's going on? We're already lying now. Google thinks I'm a robot, so I have to. But yeah, no. Keep telling me what you guys are watching. I'm curious. I'm sorry I was gone. I always try not to be gone that long, but you know. While you may not be the hardest working fish stream at home, why is it looking up track and field? 1 second. Oh, I looked up Discus North and it auto-corrected to say youth afterwards. That's crazy. Okay, you may not be the hardest working fish streamer, but most of you, I assume, are hardest working at something. You know, I think the people in my chat are probably hardworking people. And a lot of the common motivations behind working hard is so you can take breaks. You know, work hard, play hard. So just because I didn't stream for a week doesn't mean I'm not the hardest working fish streamer, right? I work hard so I can take breaks. Now, Mick said you all are watching Discus North. A quick audit. Let's see. Yeah, we're at under 100 views for the last 4 videos. All right, we're topping off at 234 5 days ago for a drama video on Aquafunk. This is crazy. So the only time we broke 200. Oh, the only time we broke 100. It looks like the 2 main times is talking about Aquafunk, and that only broke 100. So it barely did anything. He couldn't even broke 250 with MD Fish Tank. So. Mick, live fact check, you are all not watching Discus North. You have been lied, okay? That was a lie. That was a total lie. Yeah, Camjet, what drama's going on right now? Y'all, we need to not give him views. He's a mean old girl. I mean, I believe in charity, so I don't mind giving views to people that need it. I mean, look at me. I only have hundreds of views on most of my live streams. Come on, I know how it is. I've been assimilated to Discus North. It's hilarious. Borg Fish Keepers. Yeah, don't do it again. It was scary. Been in my bed crying. Come on, Vic. been watching Jeff Pelham. He's coming for your title. You know, it's impossible. No one can come for my title. It's impossible. I'm the hardest working. People only saying other people are hardest working in relation to me. You know, you guys are trying to troll me to get me to stream more. I'm not gonna fall for it. Okay, I feel very secure in my title. Okay. Well, let's get into it. Okay, let's get into it. And actually, I need to get a. Jeff P is a good guy. Jeff K is pretty awesome. What the heck? Listen, it's hardest working. You know, it's a combination of factors. It's not just time. It's not just consistency. I mean, all those things are factors. But I think I put a lot of work into this. Like I said, I stream in my sleep. You know what I mean? Okay, some funk, Chattanooga Ed, and News Lie, of course. You guys check, I think Mexicali did a stream recently. Mexicali Fish Keeper. I haven't even been able to watch too much, so I haven't missed out. Oh, he's streaming, he's got one with art coming up. I swear he did one the other day called I'm Bored, but he must not have saved the VOD where it's public on his channel. Okay, well, that's unfortunate. Speaking of Discus North, by the way, so I'm just gonna real quickly go over this just because I'm keeping you guys updated on things that we did on the channel. So I've been waiting for the Discus North Aquafunk debate on swamp tanks. It don't look like it's gonna happen, and essentially what's happened is that Discus North has completely bitched out of the competition. So I'm not gonna make us listen to him talk about it, but he essentially said, look, you want me to come on your stream with your emotional support people in the chat and blah blah, I'm not gonna do it. So you know what, if you want us to debate first, you have to get some discus and keep them alive and grow out some baby discus to where they're not stunted, which is kind of related to something we'll talk about today. Challenging someone, basically telling them they have to do something you know they won't do before you do something that you just don't want to do, is basically your way of saying, I'm too pussy to do this. So unfortunately, I don't think we're getting the Discus North Aquafunk debate because Discus North is basically backing out. They call it scaredy cat, I believe is what they call it. It's unfortunate. It would have been great entertainment, but shout out to Discus North and Aquafunk. Alright. Let's see, what else is going on that I gotta, before we really get into it. What's up, Ani K? How's it going? Even Ani K was harassing me this time a little bit. Camjen said, only cost $2,000 to set up a discus tank with UV, sump, etc. Yeah, I mean, I think at one point the video was like, discus are literally the king of fish, blah, blah. I'm like, bro, just fuck a discus on camera at this point. Like, this guy, discus are cool, but like, I mean, like, the pancake fish, okay, they're cool, but buddy, calm down. Calm down. There's a lot of cool fish. What, hey? I don't know about that. Okay. So I got a couple things on the schedule for us to talk about here. And those things are, so we got stunted versus normally grown fish. I'm trying to go back to covering multiple things in a stream. I think what he's saying is the difficulty level. I'm just gonna say there's a lot of difficult fish out there. I don't think they're the most difficult. Ani K said 2K, who doesn't have that in the piggy bank? I don't know. It just doesn't really seem worth it. You gotta set up a discus tank to debate someone that, is making Marvel villain videos in their fish room. The Aqua Chunk Challenge. Like, it kind of seems like a waste of time. So, unfortunately, I don't think it's gonna happen. Okay, so yeah, stunted versus normally grown fish. New Glofish. Yep. Microbiome collapse equals post-purchase mortality, and then some events. There's a bunch of events coming up I was gonna go over. All right. Got a message again, my bad. what do we want to get started with? Let me see. I'm so rusty. I'm so rusty right now. Well, first off, I guess let's just get into this stunted fish situation. All right, because this is what JP's been harassing me about. So may as well just get into it off the bat. Now I found a great paper for this. It's a review paper, so it kind of summarizes a bunch of different research information, which is always kind of useful. But basically, JP has been asking about stunted fish. This is like fish, they don't have enough nutrition, they're stressed out, they're too small of a tank, their growth is stunted. I'm just going to look up the word stunted. Let's get a definition we can work off of. Just, stunted. Okay, having been prevented from growing or developing properly. I can rock with that. That kind of makes sense to what I was thinking. Mick said, oh, forgot, been watching music videos, Cliff Beat reactions, and ordering some fish. Okay, that sounds like a pretty good time to me. Okay, so stunted fish. Now, I got this paper by Bror Johnson. This is the Norwegian Institute for Nature Research. This was received in June 2025, accepted July 2025, published August 2025, so relatively recent. And let's get into it. So the abstract starts, this is a literature-based review that draws on the studies of 34 fish species. Most are from northern temperate regions. Fish have flexible and indeterminate growth, and often they do not reach their growth and size potential. They may become stunted with impaired growth and early maturity, chiefly as phenotypically plastic reaction. The main causes of stunted growth are negative density-dependent food availability and keen intraspecific competition leading to environmental stress. Typically, their growth levels off early in life as energy consumptions approach energy costs of maintenance. Females typically attain maturity soon after the energy surplus from feeding starts to decrease. Males are often more variable in size at maturity owing to alternative mating strategies, and their size of maturity depends on both species-specific mating behaviors and environmental opportunities. So, let's get into this fish stunting thing in the introduction. Are you guys ready? Are you guys ready? We're just getting right into it. It's so early. Usually by the time I get into reading something, it's much later in the day. Also, my disclaimer as usual is that I'm not trained in science. I have no science background. I can just read a couple of words, so keep that in mind. JP says, oh yeah, see? Doesn't this sound exactly like what you wanted? This is for you, JP. Okay, Ani K said ready. Okay, if you're ready, let's go. I want to see some readies in the chat. We gotta understand some words. I'm gonna be looking up a lot with this one. Okay, Vic's ready. Let's go. So fish growth is phenotypically plastic, and many fish do not reach their growth and size potential. All right. They may become stunted with impaired growth, early maturity, and short lifespan. Now, a lot of people ask about whether stunting is bad or not, that I want a smaller fish or something. As we read through this, I'm looking for health effects of stunting. Already in the first sentence of the intro, we see impaired growth, early maturity, and short lifespan. So some people in the chat beforehand were like, and I see Cam Jam ready. Let's go, Cam Jam. Mexicali in the chat. Swim Deanna Jones, watch out. What's it going? How's it going, Jorge? How you doing? Hope you're doing all right. So, in the chat before the stream started, they're like, I want smaller fish. Let me stunt their growth. Well, in the first sentence, it already seems kind of like, I don't know, that might actually have some negative effects beyond just them looking funny. Cam Jam said Jorge with the salute and the cowboy hat emoji. Scotty the Fish Freak said, stunted, why am I 5'2.5 inches? That's a good question. Scotty, did you eat your vegetables? I don't know. Already a century ago, wow, a century, it's a long time, this aspect of phenotypic plasticity bothered and was eagerly discussed by fish ecologists. These guys are just getting around eagerly discussing fish stunting. Crazy. Who would do such a thing? And fish growth and stunting still remain an important ecological issue. Phenotypic plasticity is the reaction norm of phenotypic traits to variable environmental conditions. I'm going to look up the word phenotypic just to ground myself here. Okay, phenotypic, relating to the observable characteristics of an individual resulting from the interaction of its genotype with the environment. All right, getting back into it. So phenotypic plasticity is a reaction norm of phenotypic traits to variable environmental conditions. Mexicali fish keeper said, I saw Glofish in the title, so I'm here. All right, we're definitely getting into the Glofish. A couple of fish said, my fish never stunted, only stunners. Wow, what a one-liner. Let's do it. Okay, reaction norms may be expressed as continual gradient variations of individual traits depending on the characteristics of organisms' environment, but can be dichotomous as in polymorphic and polyphenic populations, where the individuals are expressed as alternative phenotypes. Typically, stunted fish cease growing at an early age, and thereafter, somatic growth is slow and may even be negative. In extreme cases, stunted adults weigh only a few % of normally growing conspecifics, such as in freshwater resident and Anadromous Atlantic salmon. In this review, I summarize reasons for why fish stunt and describe characteristics of stunted fish and how they differ from normally growing conspecifics. Now, when we do our next quiz, I guarantee a lot of stuff from the stream will be in it. Better said, I wonder if temps can cause stunts since it speeds up metabolism and life, not allowing full growth from lack of time needed to reach it. I'm sure temperature has an impact, especially if, like you said, if it speeds up the metabolism and it's warm and they already aren't getting enough nutrition to maintain normal growth and they have a faster metabolism because of the temperature, it could exacerbate an issue that's caused by lack of proper, available resources. Ani says impacts snails. That's true. Like if you want to grow really nice snail shells, I do think cooler is usually better, right? Because then it's slower growth on the shell. You can keep it more consistent. So the hypothesis as we start this, the author's hypothesis is that stunted and normally growing conspecifics typically are adapted to different environmental niches. I briefly describe energy budgets that lead to stunting, then I review typical characteristics of stunted populations and how age and size at maturity differ from growing conspecifics. Okay. And many of the examples are from northern temperate species such as Salmonidae. However, they use examples of other species when appropriate. So let's look into the method for this. I see Jeff in the chat. What's up, Jeff? Next said food, temp, okay, water. Some factors, possibly. Why do fish stunt? There are several reasons why individual fish stunt, but the best described size regulatory mechanism is negative density-dependent growth, which functions in concert with density-dependent mortality. For example, Laban Servia found for stream-living populations of brown trout that when recruitment was low, that growth, but not early survival, decreased with increasing population density. In cases of elevated recruitment, both growth and survival decreased with increasing density because of competition for limited resources. Food availability for individual fish decreases with increasing population density. Interference competition appears to dominate in lotic environments. Let me look up LOTIC, lotic environments. Organisms inhabiting or situated in rapidly moving freshwater. Okay, so in some rapidly moving environments, interference competition appears to dominate, and exploitative competition typically occurs in lentic environments. I'm gonna guess that's the opposite. Yes, lentic. Inhabiting or situated in still fresh water. So lentic, still, lotic, fast moving. All right, that's definitely going to be on the quiz. Holy. However, both lead to reduced growth and increased mortality, although the mechanisms differ. Exploitative competition does this by reducing the resource availability and increasing the vulnerability to other pressures such as predation. Interference competition leads to increased mortality, reduced growth, and shifts in resource use because of direct interference between competitors. Populations with stunted fish are typically found in overcrowded ponds and small lakes, where fish are restricted from exploiting alternative habitats with better growth opportunities, but it's not limited to these. Stunted growth is also described as occurring in rivers, large lakes, and marine systems. Less is known about whether interspecific competition leads to stunting, although it is known that interacting populations can adjust their phenotypes in response to their respective competitors. Also, when limited prey availability constitutes a whole prey category, such as zooplankton, zoobenthos, or fish, this can function as a trophic bottleneck, leading to the stunting of all species that depend on this prey group for continued growth, as reported in a few cases. Alright. Thus, interspecific competition may lead to stunting, and growth restriction should be strongest in enclosed systems with a few alternative food niches. There are several other reasons than increased density that can lead to stunting. And for me, increased density, that definitely sounds right to me, because for me, stunting generally happens less with feeding and more with just not getting fish into big enough tanks quick enough, and they're just with all their siblings for too long. And you know what I mean? The density definitely is one of the more observable things going on. I think JP said that's part of how he stunted his rainbow fish that he was talking about. For example, a high risk of predation can reduce the feeding activity of prey species and reduce their access to proper habitats with food. Experimentally, this is demonstrated for juvenile three-spined sticklebacks, Gastrosteus aculeatus. You guys know these? Three-spined sticklebacks. Strange-looking little fish. Whew. 7058, they exposed to the cues of predatory rainbow trout, and initially their growth was fast, but they matured younger and smaller than unexposed conspecifics. Furthermore, fishing and predators may selectively remove old prey and select for younger age at maturity and smaller adult size. However, predators or fishing may have the opposite effect, reducing population density and thereby leading to increased individual growth. In addition, parasitation and disease can cause environmental stress and lead to stunted growth. Stunting may also be associated with inferior physical habitat. Come on, man. Come on. What is it? Wish a Fish? My Wish a Fish tank isn't that bad. Don't call it an inferior physical habitat. I got the colored gravel. I got, the figurines in there. Come on. A couple of fish. You kept some of the three-spine sticklebacks. All right. Mix it basically enough of proper nutrient-rich food per fish. So it looks like the nutrients is one aspect, but then parasitization, disease, environmental stress, that can lead to stunted growth as well. Stunting is associated with inferior physical habitat and pollution. Nutrient deficiency, for example, owing to wastewater purification, extreme temperatures, low oxygen saturation, and low pH of the water. Poor growth is associated with a variety of environmental stressors, but the physiological responses to these stressors appear similar. Possibly the stressors trigger the same response through the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, a neuroendocrine mechanism that increases the release of glucocorticoid hormones, cortisol and corticosterone, and may also lead to reduced insulin secretion and the insulin-like growth factor. Behaviorally, strong environmental stress may lead to allostatic overload, i.e., the stress response system becomes overwhelmed and dysregulated. This may be caused by increase in cortisol levels in the plasma and the amount of serotonin in the brain, which reduces escape responses, reduce feeding, and increase vulnerability to predation. Although stunting is typically an environmentally induced effect, reaction norms are formed by natural selection, so there's also a genetic component involved that restricts the degree of plasticity, and epigenetic regulation of it may be involved, like in human stunted growth. Although there is little evidence of epigenetic regulation of growth from studies of fish, there is some evidence suggesting that early environmental stimuli, such as incubation temperature of embryos, may influence later somatic growth. I'm just going to look up somatic growth real quick, just so I can make sure I'm on the same page, or I have a page to even be on when it comes to somatic growth definition. That isn't the AI. Okay, somatic growth refers to the increase in weight, height, and organ size. Somatic development refers to the comprehensive physical growth and maturation of an organism's non-reproductive cells and tissues. All right, gotcha. JP Jeffrey says fish in sewers are probably stunted. It's a good possibility. All right. In Atlantic salmon and European whitefish, egg incubation temperature influences adult size. And in recent evidence from walleye, Sander Vertius, Mitchell, 1818, suggests that early environments affect offspring growth as an epigenetic or parental effect, and possibly lead to stunting in some cases. So all the way to the incubation temperature of the egg could also affect the final potential of a fish. Moneyless Maven said, I stunted a bristlenose pleco by accident. It was 2 inches. I put it in a tank when I emptied the tank of fish. I forgot about it a few months later. I went to clean it out and it was still there, like 2 inches. It's like 3.5 to 4 inches now, like 4 or more later. It's not really growing. Yep, I've definitely done a similar kind of thing before. I have some killifish I stunted in a similar way. Although stunted fish have been known about since the first half of the 20th century, in situ measurements of energy intake and costs of a stunted fish were not reported before a half century later. Metabolic measurements of Arctic char were made possible using a tracer element, 137Cs, which was available in northern ecosystems after the Chernobyl disaster in 1986. This, but also other tracer elements, can be used for measurements of metabolic rates in nature. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, we can trace the growth rate now that we've had a nuclear meltdown. Pushing the world forward. Let's go. Nukes. Stunted fish cease to grow because the annual energy use approaches the gains from food consumption. They reach maximum energy intake when relatively young. In this example of Arctic char, at age 2, they have a mean wet mass of 40 grams. Thereafter, the annual energy intake decreases with increasing age and mass, which appears typical for stunted fish. The energy intake decreases with increasing age and mass. Maximum growth rate is reached where the difference between energy consumption and cost is at its maximum, in this case at 30 grams wet mass, which is far less than in normally growing Arctic char. Also, total energy costs level off with age, but the reduction in cost is smaller than the reduction in energy intake. In the present example, if the annual energy intake and costs are similar at 60 grams, the growth stagnates, and the mean body mass may even decrease among older fish of stunted populations. Let me put the link to this, by the way, and pin it. I forgot to do that. Jeff said, I agree, we need more nukes. Mick said, I remember Chernobyl. Oh my gosh. Mick, were you there? For some reason, when you say I remember Chernobyl like that, I'm like, it feels like you're responsible in some way. What happened, Mick? Better said, I had a swordtail and a 10-gallon outgrow. One's in the main tank. I was feeding her... Oh, outgrow, one's in the main tank. I was feeding her way less, too. I mean, feeding her way less... But was it the only swordtail in there with like less competition kind of a thing? Because then that sounds like it benefited from lack of density still. The energy intake of stunted fish may be restricted by keen competition for food or other causes of environmental stress. Offspring from stunted parents, however, can grow large when the growth restrictions are released, although the maximum size may still be smaller than among normally growing conspecifics associated with early sexual maturation or other inherited differences. Experimentally starved fish. That's a crazy start to a sentence. Experimentally starved fish released from food restrictions may start growing at a higher than usual rate. This technique is used to save costs in artificial fish rearing. For example, in a field experiment, Ligam et al. showed that milkfish channels had elevated specific growth rates, body mass gains, and digestive enzyme activities during a period after the growth restrictions were terminated, and they had a complete restoration of nutrients. However, compensatory growth after fasting is not always observed. For instance, growth may be limited after fasting in cases where the population density is very high with intense environmental stress. Decreasing individual growth rate with increasing body size is a natural process. Larger bodies require greater maintenance costs, and decreasing growth with increasing body size is thus due to resource limitations, elevated maintenance costs, and an eventual transition to a mature size and reproductive phase. When fish grow, the increase in energy environments because of a larger body mass is faster than the increase in their ability to digest and process food. This is easily understood because as fish grow, the increase in gill area taking up oxygen and the gut area taking up energy and nutrients from food are relatively smaller than the increase requirements because of the larger body mass. Jeff Kane said, is dwarfism a possibility with fish? I believe so. But now we're going to have to go and figure out what's the difference between dwarfism and being stunted. Maven said, "Kay, gotta lurk. I've gotta run and make something to mix my vodka with." Oh my gosh. Okay, I'll be here when you get back. Mick said, Swedish Nuclear Institute detected the radiation about 12 to 24 hours here. I was a kid. Parents kept their kids inside, followed the news every hour. Wow, that's kind of crazy. Furthermore, their ability to move and find food is chiefly related to their length, not their mass, adding to this problem. Okay, what's it? The ability to move and find food is related to their length, not their mass. Interesting. In addition, food can be more restricted because fish need gradually larger food items for sustained growth. Naturally, fish may in periods stop feeding when their lipid reserves are high, and it is observed that the length of natural fasting periods increases with age. Fasting is typically associated with sexual maturation and spawning, but there may also be other fasting periods such as high temperatures in the summer, decreasing temperatures during autumn, or low temperatures during winter. It's kind of interesting because when I did Mitchell Broom, I went to Mitchell Broom's talk at ACLC, and he talked about some quarries that need the dry period and how you basically have to treat them poorly and not feed them as well. But that combined with me reading this makes me think about how many fish would benefit from a fasting period as far as trying to trigger them to spawn. That's something a little bit interesting to think about. Maven said, I would consider balloonfish as dwarfism. Okay, now I'm going. What's up, Ben? Been in the chat with the isopod emojis. Let's go. Wind brought clouds of radiation north and northwest of Kyiv in today's Ukraine. Wow. Growth restrictions often lead to ontogenic shifts in food consumption, but growth may also stagnate after ontogenic switches. Forrest et al. Exhibited that young Arctic char in a study lake fed successfully on zooplankton until age of 3 years. After that, the growth rate declined quickly. Apparently, the availability and the competition for zoobenthos restricted further growth. So, fish needing different foods at different periods of their life. Can I just feed tiny food to my big fish forever? Maybe I need to make sure I'm still feeding some bigger pellets and stuff, right? Okay. Apparently the availability, okay. A similar observation was reported for stunted America yellow perch. This lake also supported other stunted fish that fed on zoobenthos, pumpkin seed sunfish, Lepomis gibosus, rock bass, Amylopledes rupstris, and the brown bullhead, Ictalurus nebulosus. In this system, northern pike, Eastlox lucius, and the golden shiner, Notimajonus chrysolucus, did not feed on zoobenthos, were not stunted. So they didn't feed on the zoobenthos, the thing that had a bunch of competition for it. So they weren't stunted. They weren't competing over the thing everyone else was. By the way, I'm looking up zoobenthos, and I'm assuming it's basically benthic organisms, stuff on the bottom. So that would be like aquatic isopods. That would be like scuds and other larvae. I see a graphic here, and it does seem to have, like, you see some mayfly larvae, you see a scud, you see snails, some worms. So yeah, just to give you a picture of what they're competing over. That's one reason why the aquatic isopods, for me, my big goal is to really be using them as a live food eventually, when I have so many that I can, you know, ship them out and also feed them the stuff consistently, because it seems to be like a really important natural food for a lot of fish. So I think it'd be pretty helpful. Isopod agenda. Mick said, watch the HBO series Chernobyl with 3 Swedish actors plus the Swedish. Okay, I'll have to check it out. However, in the absence of prey fish, northern pike will feed on invertebrates and stunt. Oh, so they don't have their proper prey fish. They feed on inverts, and that's not enough to sustain them to their max potential. In these cases, restricted availability of benthic invertebrates was blamed for the trophic bottlenecks. In ecological literature, most examples of stunted fish are from freshwater systems. However, the same may hold true for marine species in enclosed areas, such as reported for the large yellow croaker, Namorichthys crocea. Let's look up what this thing. I was hoping for like a pretty marine fish, and it's just kind of like a silver, ugly fish. I'm not gonna lie. It's got kind of a yellowish sheen to it, but I need a marine fish to look cool, you know what I mean? Otherwise, I'm not interested. Unless I'm eating it. Also, in that case, a lack of... try to just quickly go away for that. A lack of benthic invertebrates was blamed for poor fish growth, restricting the young from switching from zooplankton to diet to larger prey. Moreover, the cod were restricted from deep water because of poor water quality in the profundal zone. Alright. So, morphology and habitat. Often, stunted phenotypes resemble young conspecifics that have not performed the autogenic habitat or dietary switch like normally growing conspecifics do, and their coloration is like juvenile conspecifics. For example, Arctic char often forms stunted populations, and it may also form stunted and normal growing populations within the same length. Normally growing Arctic char, in the scientific literature often called normal char, wow, they went crazy with that one, perform an autogenic niche shift and move from epibenthic, often profundal habitat to the limnic zone when they are 15 to 20 centimeters in length, when the predation risk for other things like brown trout is strongly reduced. The stunted fish remain in their juvenile habitat, have beige backs and vertical parr marks along their flanks, and do not exhibit the bright spawning colors when they mature as normal char do. At the onogenic change, the backs of normal char darken, their sides become silvery, and their parr marks disappear. They acquire a more streamlined body shape and a bright red belly as spawning dress. So the stunted char can flaunt epibenthic camouflage colors, and normal char exhibit pelagic camouflage colors. The stunted phenotype also has a relatively larger head and stouter body shape than normal char, which is definitely what my stunted killifish, my P82 females I stunted, definitely, they got like a weird kind of larger head and a shorter body. This is also a trait reported in other species of stunted fish, such as crucian carp, white perch, and green sunfish. Stunted white perch have a relatively short middle body, giving them a stouter appearance. Alright, what's up, Jacob? How's it going? Jacob says, yo, yo. Alright, let me make sure I'm on live chat. Forgot about that. Alright. Let's see. What else can we get into here? So, this is a good start. Some interesting stuff there. I have another one on stunting. Of course, we're not just doing one. Come on. Give me a second. I'm gonna go to the next one. What do you guys think so far? We got a couple different factors for stunting across a couple different species. I gotta find my link that has the full PDF. One thing they talked about that really interested me, though, is this compensatory growth. The idea that they intentionally starve or stunt things due to kind of a growth explosion that can happen. That's what I kind of want to look at in this next one. So let me load that up real quick, and we'll get into that. They're talking about the effect it has on a carcass. This just sounds disgusting, but we're gonna have to take a look. I'm sorry, I have to do it. Jacob said, very pleased with the data. JP said, very pleased with the data. I'm glad you're pleased, sir. I'm glad you're pleased. All right, on to the next one real quick. Okay, we got to get to Mexicali's Glofish. That's probably not going to take very long, but we got to get to it. So the duration of stunting impacts compensatory growth and carcass quality of farmed milkfish channels under field conditions. So channels, milkfish. Here you go. A popular mild and slightly sweet fish in Southeast Asian cuisine. So in this, they did an 18-month field trial that was performed to explore the effect of duration of stunting on growth, digestive enzymes, and carcass quality in milkfish. Aquaculture, the underwater agriculture, is fulfilling half of the animal protein requirement of the world population through its protein-rich product. Fish in the present global scenario, increasing population and limited natural resources, rearing a fish in captive conditions is considered as the most efficient and cheapest animal protein production system compared to other protein production sectors. However, in the evolution context of intensive modern fish culture practices, feed utilization efficacy of fish is considered as an important regulating factor of aquaculture production efficiency, which also determines growth and nutrient deposition in fish carcass. On the other side, acceptance of farmed fish by the consumer as a nutritious food is becoming an increasingly debatable since fish encounter multiple stressors in captive conditions, and the use of antibiotics in farming yielding an inferior quality farmed fish. In the future, with high social awareness and health concern population, there will be a huge demand for the production of superior quality farmed fish in farmed in an energy efficient way, which is going to be a major challenge for growing the aquaculture industry. So, what does this have to do with why we're here today? Ole. Compensatory growth, CG, is what they're going to be referring to it under. Compensatory growth is an accelerated growth response observed in stunted fish seed. The fish has been previously subjected to a stressful condition, so I'm thinking like a really unfairly hard final, a breakup, perhaps trying to do their taxes, just something stressful. A stressful condition under optimal culture conditions. CG, again, compensatory growth, is considered as a promising tool to increase aquaculture production, and it had been widely experimented in cultivable fish because of its faster growth rate and enhanced feed utilization. In order to induce the CG response, it's essential to keep the fish in a catabolic phase, which signals the activation of the CG response by adjusting the endogenous energy reserves and endocrine profile. In nature, many fish species undergo a prolonged period of starvation during spawning migration and winter season, so it is acceptable to keep the fish in restricted feeding conditions for a prolonged period. Stunting, a high stocking and feed deprivation technique, is practiced by farmers to produce stunted fish that display the CG response under optimal culture conditions. In general, larger fish may require extended periods of stunting to induce the nutritional stress than smaller fish to provoke the CG response. Previous studies suggest that in restricted feeding, a stunted phase, fish displayed a significant reduction in body weight gain and survival. Many studies found that under favorable conditions, stunted fish exhibit better growth and feed utilization. JP said, aha, so it's okay. Hold up there, JP. That is not what's going on here. Also, are you trying to grow your fish for maximum food potential? Are you trying to eat them? Because they're very different use cases here. Okay. Digestion is a key metabolic process and determines the nutrient availability for all biological functions, including growth, which is controlled by digestive enzyme activity. Many authors reported a significant reduction in successful restoration and digestive enzyme activities of fish during restricted and normal feeding conditions, respectively. In general, fish digestive enzymes are affected by the aquaculture feeding practices such as fasting and refeeding. Hence, profiling of fish digestive enzyme activity in stunting and post-stunting is necessary for understanding growth and feed utilization of fish. Among the commercially important tropical marine finfish, milkfish is one of the topmost candidates for marine and brackish aquaculture due to its euryhaline nature, meat quality, omnivorous feeding habitat, market demand, and well-established rearing protocol. Mick said, I'm interested in the knowledge regarding genes' ability to turn on or shut off regular activity when a body is forced to withstand lack of nutrients, a factor some scientists brought up 10 years ago. Mick is thinking. He's getting curious. In the late 80s, an intense effort was made by various researchers to study the effect of stunting in milkfish, and thereafter, not much work had been carried out on stunted milkfish. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. So the growth performance of fish. The initial body weight of fish did not significantly differ between stunted and normal groups. However, at the end of the stunting fish, a significant reduction in weight gain and SGR was observed in stunted fish with respect of their normally reared counterparts. Overall, the stunted fish reached a body weight. Let me look at the things over here. So the stunting duration had negatively affected the survival of fish, and significantly lowered survival rate was recorded in one of the groups. Nutrient / physical or mental stress. Oh my gosh, I need to get some water. It's right here. Give me a second. I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of numbers right now. My brain is just not doing the number part of this. I'm gonna have to scroll through. I'm gonna scroll through to something I can read, that I can actually try to understand. Okay, proximate composition of the fish. So the stunted fish displayed significantly higher moisture and lower dry matter contents at the end of the stunting phase when compared to their respective control fish. The T12 group exhibited significantly lower protein and fat contents at the end of the stunting phase. At the end of the post-stunting phase, lower moisture and higher dry matter contents were recorded in post-stunted fish. Among the stunted group, significantly higher protein content was observed in the T8 group. All right. So, JP Jeffrey said, "Ooh, graphs." I have the link pinned in the chat if you want to check out the graphs and stuff for yourself. The present study found that a significant reduction in body weight gain and specific growth rate of fish at the end of the stunting phase. A significant reduction in body weight gain and SGR was reported in a couple of species. In feed restriction or starvation or stunting conditions, African catfish exposed to 2 months of complete feed restriction showed significantly reduced body weight gain. A contrary result was reported in gibel carp, where short-term feed restriction 1 to 2 weeks did not reduce the body weight. Well, that's 1 to 2 weeks versus 2 months. However, in a supportive finding, significant reduction in body weight was reported on long-term starved 80-day channel catfish. In general, food type and ration size largely affects the fish growth, so the suboptimal feeding regime followed in the stunting phase is the reason behind lower body weight gain of stunted fish compared to their counterpart normally fed fish. What's up, 186? How's it going? I'm seeing multiple times they say the survival rate is affected by this, so that would be the biggest reason not to do it for our own purposes, probably. Post-stunting phase. The weight loss during stunting could be compensated in refeeding phase partly or fully by fish. However, the degree of compensation alimentation phase depends on the duration and severity of food restriction imposed in the stunting phase. In the present study, the T8 group exhibited complete growth compensation. The body weight of the T8 group did not differ significantly from the control group at the end of the post-stunting. So for one group, how they did it, They starved them, but they were able to make up for that starvation when they started getting fed again. The T4 and T12 groups displayed partial growth compensation, where a rapid restoration of body weight was observed in the initial phase of re-alimentation, but did not restore fully as that of the control group. Duration of food restriction in the stunting phase to induce nutritional stress varies among species to induce the compensatory growth response in post-stunting. In Arctic char, 3 weeks of deprived feeding was insufficient to induce compensatory growth, whereas the same fish in 6 months of cyclic restricted feeding exhibited complete growth compensation. In fish, feed restriction should reach its threshold limit in stunting phase in order to induce compensatory growth in post-stunting. Okay. What's up? How's it going, Maven? Back again. Mick said, Nick, repeat recent 10 minutes for Shirley, please. No. Elevated digestive enzyme activity was observed in stunted fish compared with the control group in the post-stunting phase. Rapid restoration of atrophied intestine was reported in the refeeding phase. Colosoma macropomum, which subjected to 7 weeks of feed starvation in the refeeding stage, showed a drastic increase in amylase activity. The increased digestive enzyme activity in the re-elimination phase was due to the increased availability of food after food restriction period. In rainbow trout, significantly reduced lipase activity reported during starvation phase. However, the reduced activity was successfully restored in the refeeding phase. The feed-restricted tongue sole Cenoglossus semiephes displayed a significantly higher lipase activity than the normally fed fish in the refeeding phase. In fish, faster growth rate used to be accompanied by elevated digestive enzyme activities which improved digestive capacity. In labio rohita, an increased amylase and protease activities were attributed to compensatory growth. In the present study, the elevated digestive enzyme activities of stunted fish during the post-stunting phase further confirmed the compensatory growth response of stunted fish. Maven said, you need to go back and tell me again the class needed the repetition. Didn't you say you went to go get some vodka? How am I going to be trying to repeat to someone that literally just went to get some alcohol? You ain't going to hear. You have a less chance of hearing what I'm saying than when you are gone. The availability of more feed in the refeeding phase supplies more quantity of nutrients to the intestinal lumen for tissue regeneration of stunted fish. However, the magnitude of tissue regeneration depends on the threshold point that the fish experience in the stunting phase. All right. Let's see what they concluded here. This study found that the rearing of stunted milkfish over normal milkfish has advantages in terms of improved growth performance and delivers a better quality product. However, stunting of milkfish for 4 months was insufficient, and 12 months was excessive to favor the positive compensatory growth response. So the optimum stunting duration for stunted milkfish seed production is 8 months to improve the overall production of milkfish with a nutritionally better product, which also helps stakeholders to overcome the contemporary challenges of milkfish culture. Furthermore, the changes in stunted fish during the post-stunting phase at a physiological level has been poorly understood, especially immunological responses. Therefore, a challenge study using histological and molecular tools will be welcome to understand more about the immunity and physiological recovery of stunted fish in post-stunting phase. Beto said, would vodka cause the stunt? JP said my highlighter read out, LOL. I hope so, better I could use the stunting. LOL. Alright, you guys asleep yet? Come on. Come on. One more. What? One more stunting thing, or you guys had enough? Look, JP's been asking. This is a stream for JP Jeffries. As long as JP is enjoying it. Look, don't ask me about it again. I got one more that I felt like doing. We could do that. The impact duration of stunting and compensatory growth and the biometrics of Snebbo's pompano. Trachonitis bloshi in low saline conditions. Ooh. JP says it's awesome. Continue. All right. I kind of want to talk about the microbiome collapse, you know, but you know, we rock out with this. So we're at CG, compensatory growth, all right? Compensatory growth in the snub-nosed pompano. Let's look this fish up. Beto says, I'm following. I'm glad someone is. This thing look crazy. They're aquaculture in this. Like, this don't even look like something. Yo, people just eat any random fish, man. What the hell? This don't even look like food. Stunted in low saline condition, was evaluated for field application. The fish were stunted for 30, 60, and 90 days by stocking 100 fish M-3, providing a commercial feed, 45% protein, 0.8 to 1.2 millimeter size at suboptimal level, 3% of average body weight. Post-stunting rearing was carried out in triplicates for 30, 60, or 90 days at a stocking density of 20 fish M-3, providing the same feed, approximately 15% of average body weight, so a lot more food. Normal fish were maintained in triplicate at 20 fish, providing feed at optimal level of 10% average body weight throughout the experiment. Parameters such as weight gain, pattern, final average body weight, and specific growth rate per day indicated near complete compensatory growth in 30 days stunted fish, a partial compensatory growth in 60 days, and no compensatory growth in 90 days stunted fish compared to the corresponding normal fish that were observed. The 60-day stunted fish was found ideal for field adoption with longer stunting period with better compensatory growth and survival. A field trial was conducted in a circular cage by stunting the fish at 40 fish in -3, feeding the different body weight amounts, 3%, 15%, 10%. So let's get into this. Mick said, go on please, have you found any different results in some other studies? We're about to find out. Quality stocking material is one of the important prerequisites for cage farming. As an innovative approach, the concept of compensatory growth in fish is well exploited in aquaculture. Stunted fingerlings are used as stocking material for farming. Compensatory growth in fish is a phase of augmented growth. I can already tell this paper is going to be much easier for me to read already. Thank the Lord. This is making a lot more sense. This is making a lot more sense. Let's go. Compensatory growth in fish is a phase of augmented growth when favorable conditions are restored. After a period of growth depression that may be classified as overcompensation, full compensation, partial compensation, and no compensation based on the rate of recovery of the growth. All right. One study emphasized that endocrine regulation during the catabolic and hyperanabolic phase plays a major role in compensatory growth. The pattern has been evaluated in several commercially important fish, such as hybrid sunfish, Lipoma silnellus x bluegill, Elnia crocerus, channel catfish, Asian sea bass, Asian sea bass, big-headed carp, Nile tilapia, Oliver flounder, red sea bream, milkfish, and Atlantic salmon. I don't have anything. I didn't necessarily seek out anything to refute anything. I just found multiple things on the topic. Ooh, let me pin the link to this one. Holy. All right. What was I saying? Right. It's found that the degree of compensation largely varies with the nature, severity, and duration of the undernutrition, the stage of development at the start of undernutrition, the age of sexual maturity, and the pattern of re-alimentation. One thing I'm taking away from this is if you want to stunt your fish, which, I mean, if you want to use whatever this compensatory growth thing is, it kind of seems like it takes them a lot of effort and money to figure out all these variables to make it actually do something positive. So I probably would not try and do whatever this is. But even though they're using it as a trick to kind of save money on feeding things and get this fast growth rate at some point, it does seem clear that stunting fish has negative health effects for sure. Beto says, so your fish can experience compensatory growth when you upgrade them to a larger tank. I think that's probably a terrible takeaway from this because we're seeing them achieve compensatory growth in very specific scenarios where they're like calculating out the exact time, they're measuring the body weight and feeding the exact percentage that gets that result. All things I don't think many of us are capable of doing. Chances are, if you stunt your fish, it's just gonna be stunted. You know. JP says I'm gonna try it. You're such a troll. You're such a troll, JP. There's just a lot of factors that go into it, so I think it'd be hard to say when they would actually compensate or not. You know. What's up, Ross? How's it going? Ross Baltimore in the chat. JP said I got some triple beams. What do you mean by that? Okay, so they did the 3 experiments for 30, 60, and 90 days stunting. They were conducted in 2 phases, the post-stunting and the stunting phase. Fiber reinforced plastic tanks of 3M with a little 3 over capacity, filled with clean, filtered, and chlorinated low saline water were used for the experiment. It was chlorinated and dechlorinated by aeration for 48 hours before adding to the tanks. Water exchange was carried out daily. So well, here's another thing. They're stunting the fish, but they're still doing 100% water changes every day. You know what I mean? So you're going to start your fish by not feeding them, but you're going to provide them otherwise perfect conditions. That's another thing to kind of keep in mind, right? Okay. So 100% water change daily during the stunting period in order to prevent ammonia accumulation at higher stocking densities, whereas post-stunting water change was reduced to 30% a day. Continuous aeration was provided to ensure significant dissolved oxygen in the water. Initial average weight of the fish was noted prior to the stocking in experimental tanks. JP's a dope. I'll put them in all bad conditions. Growth sampling was done fortnightly for recording the average weight and feed rations. The feed ration was divided and feed was given in the morning and at night, 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. at night, respectively, for all the indoor experiments. Okay. So here we got a graph that I can actually read. Alright. So the stunting phase, we got the water volume, feeding 10% of body weight each day. They have a 30, 60 day, and 90 day. Then we have the post-stunting phase. Yep. Stunted fish. Perfect. In each growth sampling, 30% of the stock was sampled to record the length and weight of individual fish. Total length of the fish from tip of snout to the tip of the caudal fin was measured using a 1 meter wooden scale with an accuracy of 1 millimeter. JP said, ooh, stunting instructions. So the results. Here's the average values of water quality parameters such as dissolved oxygen, pH, etc., etc. The parameters were within the optimum range for the normal growth of snub-nosed pompano. Okay. And here's the different groups with the values and their lengths. So with the 30 days group, we see the initial length, 5.8 centimeters. The final length, 6.5. The initial weight, 4.2. And the final weight, 6.0. In the normal group, their final length is 7.8. Same initial length. Same initial weight. But 8.4 for the final weight versus the 6.0. So that's the 30-day group. Baby said, okay, I'll be working because I need a nap before I really start getting to my vodka. Oh my god. For the 60-day group, damn, the final weight for the stunted group was 2.4 and the normal group was 5.0. That's pretty bad. At least it seems bad. The final length for the stunted group was 4.6 and the normal 6.6. And for the 90-day group, the final weight for the normal was 12.3 and the final weight for the stunted was 4.1. Holy. The stunted phase in this experiment is given in the table here for the treated fish. The treated fish were significantly lower than that of the normal fish in all three groups, indicating that the fish subjected to stunting were stunted, and thus they can be further explored for studying the compensatory growth pattern. The dotted lines in the figures indicate the weight of stunted fish, which was lower than that of the normal fish. Okay. The gain in weight also indicates complete compensation growth in 30 days in the 30-day stunted fish. Total biomass was significantly lower in stunted fish, and survival was the same in both treatments. During the post-stunting phase of the 60 days group, the final weight and length of the fish that were stunted were significantly lower than normal fish, but the stunted fish have shown a higher standard growth rate day percentage compared to normal fish. Data on the weight gain among stunted fish indicates that the treated fish have shown a lower growth during the stunting phase, but have partially compensated the growth during the post-stunting phase, and the growth rate of normal fish was higher during this phase. On closure of the experiment after 120 days, the study found significantly lower total biomass in stunted fish with similar survival between the stunted and normal fish. During post-stunting phase of 90 days, the stunted fish could not initiate the compensatory growth. Additionally, the experiment revealed mass mortality during the post-stunted phase of the fish. Condition factor was above 2 in both stunted and normal fish in 30 days and 60-day experiments, since the size variation was negligible and the length weight data did not yield a proper relationship. Okay, the data is not compared for the indoor experiments. Alright. Use the word stunted for a drinking word? Oh my gosh. Water quality is important for fish rearing. Water parameters such as dissolved oxygen, etc. They're all within the range of the fish of the stunting phase. Now, in a previous report, stunting was also achieved with similar survival rate in snub-nosed pompano under marine conditions up to 90 days at similar stocking and feeding protocol. During stunting period, majority of the stored biomolecules in tissue and energy metabolized, which in turn impart a major role in inducing compensatory growth under optimal conditions. In the present study, during the post-stunting experiment, the 30 and 60-day fish showed a higher standard growth rate a day compared to normal fish, indicating compensation of growth. So they were growing at a higher rate post-stunting than the normal fish. So they're trying to compensate and catch up. In the 30 days fish, there was stunted group. There was no significant difference in the final weight of the stunted and normal fish at the end of the post-stunting phase, revealing complete growth compensation. In the 60 days stunted group, the final weight of the stunted fish was significantly lower than a normal fish. However, the weight gain pattern in the standard growth rate a day indicated partial growth compensation. In partial growth compensation, food-restricted stunted fish shows enhanced growth after the resumption of normal feeding, but they do not achieve the same body mass as that of continuously fed normal fish. The stunted fish need to be fed at a higher feeding rate in order to obtain compensatory growth. In 90 days stunted group, the growth was observed during the stunting phase, but the fish has not shown any sign of initiation of compensation during the post-stunting phase. Moreover, high rates of mortality were noticed in this group at the end of the stunting phase, which was continued when the remaining stunted fish were restocked in the post-stunting phase. The stunted stock has showed complete mortality on the 10th day of post-stunting phase. Normal fish would not show a day of mortality. Oh my god. I was like, let me turn my heater on. I'm saying stunted so much it's killing me. I can't take it anymore. Alright. Let's see. Previous reports suggest that species may yield different degrees of compensatory growth. Alright. Anything else here? Alright. So look. This is our first foray into reading a bit about the stunting of fish. Apparently, a lot of different factors, mostly focusing on nutrition, but it's kind of crazy to kind of see them try and use it for like saving money in aquaculture, but doesn't really seem to be a fantastic addition to an aquarium keeping regimen. I don't really see it achieving the goals of a lot of that kind of stuff. All right. How's everyone doing? Are we awake? Oh my gosh, I'm kind of getting tired. I'm not gonna lie. It's only 6:43. Oh my gosh, I'm rusty. I'm so rusty. Okay. Glofish. Glofish. There's some new glowfish coming. Okay? There's some new glowfish coming. I know you guys are all very excited. You just can't wait. You can't wait to see some freaking glowfish pop up. I know Mexicali is like, I've been waiting my whole life for this. I love glowfish. This is coming via... Actually, there was a Reddit post for a month ago talking about how the FDA approved glowfish latest fish. Right? So you got to go through approvals for these things. And some of those are kind of public information, right? So if you're paying attention, you can be like, oh, hey, they just got approved for this new fish. It's on the way. Yes, pretty wild. I'd like to see experiments with aquarium fish. Thanks for the deep dive. I did have one on aquarium fish. Ah! Okay, I got one more. Wait, I got one more fucking... God damn it, stunted growth thing. I forgot. This is one of the main ones I want to do. Because it's an aquarium fish. You guys know this one. The Mexican tetra, the cave fish. This is evolution of space-dependent growth in the telost Astyanax mexicanus. So I forgot. Because I agreed. I wanted an aquarium fish one. And I wanted one that was about space and not just about food. So hold up. We got one more. Nick says, so the stunted body trying to catch up is somewhat stressed and need to feed more regularly to catch up. That seemed to be what they're saying to me, because they're saying you need to feed them more. Oh, oops. What's up, George Cyclidiate? How's it going? Happy Friday, indeed. All right. Last one. What's up, Big Steve? How's it going? Last one, we're reading about stunted fish, and then we're gonna quickly look at some glowfish stuff, and then we'll go on to the last few things. So this is the evolution of space-dependent growth in telost. This is the cave fish, the blind cave fish, and we're looking at the relationship between growth rate and environmental space. So in the abstract, it says that the relationship between growth rate and environmental space is an unresolved issue in telosts. Now, just to remind ourselves what telost fish are. A fish of a large group comprised of all ray-finned fishes apart from the primitive brachiours, sturgeons, paddlefishes, freshwater garfish, and bowfins. There you go. Mick said, space-dependent, nothing on the quality of water. This will be interesting. Thank you. Yes, here we go. So telost raised in confined environmental space commonly have stunted growth, but little is known about the underlying mechanisms. This gap in our knowledge of the effects of the local environment on telost growth is primarily due to the focus of studies on multiple individuals, making it impossible to distinguish between the roles of environmental size and social interactions between fish. When seen, decreased or stunted growth in small aquaria or high stocking densities is frequently attributed to the gradual decline of environmental factors such as water quality, oxygen, and food availability, the buildup of excretions, or limited exercise opportunity. This leads to the perception that the reduced growth rate of telost in confined space is determined solely by intrinsic environmental factors. An alternative explanation for the effects of confined space on growth is that telosts may have evolved an intrinsic mechanism to regulate their growth rate relative to the local environment. According to this idea, heritable processes involving the perception of and reaction to space confinement may affect growth rate. The potential mediators of this response to confined space are unknown. One obvious candidate, however, is sight. Fish may be able to visually perceive the size of their surroundings just as they do their social interactions, and regulate their growth rates accordingly. A related possibility is the cortisol. The most active and abundant corticosteroid in fish blood may be involved in the conduction of environmental cue. A key function of cortisol is in maintaining a balanced energy metabolism, which is crucial for determining growth rate. Furthermore, excess cortisol released into the bloodstream as a consequence of stress is known to have detrimental effects on growth immunological function, and sexual reproduction. Consistent with this idea, aquaculture studies have discovered a positive correlation between stunted growth at high densities and elevated plasma cortisol levels. Dwarfs Eclipse said, "You never like to see a buildup of excretions." Yeah, that's crazy. Here we examine the relationship between environmental space and the growth in the Mexican tetra Astyanax mexicanus, a single telos species consisting of sided surface-dwelling form surface fish and many different blind cave-dwelling forms. The surface and cave-dwelling forms evolved in contrasting spatial environments. Surface fish are typically found in extensive bodies of fresh water. At least 29 separate cave fish populations, including some that evolved independently from surface fish ancestors, have been reported in northeastern Mexico, in contrast to surface fish, which have large eyes and visually based behaviors. Blind fish have degenerate eyes and compensate for vision by enhancing other sensory systems, such as the lateral line of neuromasts, taste receptors, and possibly the olfactory system, and or by evolving non-visually based behaviors. A positive selection in the dark cave environment has resulted in the evolution of adaptive traits such as vibration attraction behavior, Jesus, in which cave fish respond to lower frequency water vibrations by swimming toward their source. The fish got vibrators too. This is crazy. Because of the spatial limitations imposed by the cave environment, Astyanax cavefish provide an excellent model system to study the relationship between growth regulation and environmental space, since surface fish and cavefish are interfertile, and the application of genetic approaches to test the inheritance of growth regulation can be applied. Okay, this is a well thought out situation. River Life Pottery says, "Hello everyone." What is up, River Life Pottery? We're reading about different causes of stunting in fish growth. Right now it looks like we're looking at some blind cave fish versus the non-blind version of those same fish. All right, let's see the methods. I haven't seen one of these in the last few studies. The aquaculture papers, I don't recall this kind of statement being made at the start of them, but they have an ethics statement. This study was carried out in strict accordance with the recommendation and the guide for the care and use of laboratory animals of the National Institute of Health. The protocol was approved by the Committee on the Ethics of Animal Experimentation of the University of Maryland, Permit R09-58. All efforts were made to minimize suffering. This definitely was not the case in the last one, where they starved the fish for 90 days and had large mortalities in the post-stunting phase. LOL. Experiments were performed on laboratory-raised Astyanax mexicanus surface fish and cavefish, as well as F1 and F2 hybrids obtained from surface fish X Pachon crosses. F1 hybrids were obtained by crossing a single male cavefish with 3 female surface fishes. F2 hybrids were obtained by mating the F1 progeny of another surface fish X Pachon cavefish cross. Fish used in growth experiments were 2 to 10 months old, weighed 0.008 to 0.25 grams, and ranged from 7 to 24 millimeters in length. Prior to use in the growth experiment, fish were maintained together in 2.5 liter tanks and fed brine shrimp daily. Water temperature was 18 to 20 degrees Celsius. J.P. Jeffrey said, "My grandpa said fish don't have feelings." Well, individual fish were selected at random from a tank population. Fish were patted dry. Their length was measured from the tip of the lower jaw to the base of the spine, and they were weighed. This process took less than 1 minute, and the individual was then placed into a container with aquarium water. The same process was followed every time fish were measured and weighed during the experiments. As a precaution to prevent potential stress... Potential stress from what? I hate reading it when it's like this. Let's see. Brine shrimp. From brine shrimp, fish were only fed a minimal amount of brine shrimp the day after being measured. Individual surface fish were raised, and F2 hybrids and all that were raised for 18 to 36 days in 5, 10, or 40 milliliter volumes of water, depending on the particular experiment. In some experiments, measurements of length and weight were done 5 times during this pyramid. In other experiments, length and weight were recorded only at the beginning and end. The rate of growth was determined by dividing the change in length and mass from the beginning to the end of the experiment. All right. Growth rate under static conditions. The apparatus used to determine growth rate under static conditions is shown in Figure 1A. This allowed individual fish to swim freely in an inner chamber within a designated volume of water and use the outer chamber of larger capacity as a water exchange reservoir. The inner containers for the 5 and 10 milliliter volumes were constructed using 50 milliliter plastic conical tubes, which were inserted into 100 milliliter plastic beakers that served as the reservoirs. To construct the inner container, 8 to 10 by 2 millimeter slits were evenly distributed for the chosen volume and cut into each tube. The bottoms of the conical tubes were then cut off and replaced with a secure net consisting of a layer of cheesecloth. The inner chamber was placed in a reservoir with the cheesecloth bottom facing down, and water was added to the reservoir until it reached the appropriate volume in the inner chamber. The reservoir was covered with white paper to prevent fish from seeing outside the apparatus. A similar experiment design used a 50 milliliter conical tube as inner chambers and was followed for the 40 milliliter volumes, but the reservoir was a 500 milliliter opaque plastic cup. Interesting. This makes me get hungry for fish. BRB. Really, Mick? Really? Okay, so that's the static conditions. Growth rate under dynamic conditions. They have a different. So here's the graphs. I ain't even gonna read it. Let's look at the graph. So the static conditions. Yeah, we have a bigger container with a smaller container inside of it that has a fish in it. Dwarf Cyclidiot said they should have just bought some German breeding rigs. I know SVC out here making them. Come on. Then we got dynamic conditions. So the dynamic conditions, we got one big thing with a bunch of tiny little 40 milliliter and 10 milliliter containers in them. Okay. Change in mass. We got a graph for change in mass. Interesting. I want to read their explanation for it. Let's read the results. To determine the effects of environmental space on growth, the individual fish were raised in lighted chambers containing 10 or 40 milliliters of water for 27 to 32 days. Growth was compared under static conditions in Figure 2, in which water was changed manually every few days, and dynamic conditions, Figure 3, in which water flowed continuously through the experiment. Under static conditions, the mean growth rate of individuals maintained in the small volume was significantly lower in terms of both mass and length compared to the individuals maintained in the large volume. Similar results were obtained for growth under dynamic conditions. Surface fish raised in the small volume container had lower mean growth rates in terms of both mass and length contained to those maintained in the large volume. The results indicate that surface fish growth is constrained by environmental space when measured under static or dynamic conditions. We've termed this space-dependent growth, SDG, which is defined as a significant change in growth rate in response to environmental size. And I'll just say anecdotally, my fish fry grow so much faster when I put them in larger tanks. Like, it's actually kind of crazy how much faster they grow in a 10-gallon versus a 2.5-gallon. But that's just my anecdotal. It could be for all sorts of reasons. But the one that I notice the most is just the size of the tank. Maybe it could be something else that's happening that's causing that to be the result. But I'm not about to do a science experiment to figure out. I'm way too lazy. Alright, we conducted additional experiments to determine whether reduced growth rate exhibited by surface fish in confined space is reversible. In these experiments, individual fish raised in 10 milliliter volumes for 32 days and exhibiting space-dependent growth were transferred to the 40 milliliter volumes, and their growth rate was determined for additional 40 days. So they're basically trying to see the same thing as the last one. Can they do compensatory growth after they've been moved into a larger space, which is something I actually would really like to I'd really like to know. I'm about to move a bunch of Pseudomyl luminatus out of a 2.5-gallon into a larger tank, and I'd love to know, are they going to recover from my abuse? Not, I wouldn't say abuse, but are they going to now have an accelerated growth rate and catch up? When compared to the controls transferred to the same confined volume, the fish transferred to larger volumes show an increased growth rate by mass, let's go, and length, which was even higher than fish raised in continuously unconfined conditions. The results indicate that surface fish can compensate for lost growth following a period of confinement by enhancing their growth rate in response to larger environmental size. Let's go! There's still hope for my stunted fish. Oh my gosh, man. Oh my gosh. You know what? It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day. All my mistakes can be erased, you know? What's up, Fish Capades? How's it going? Alright. Regression of space-dependent growth in cave fish. Similar experiments to those described above were carried to determine the status of space-dependent growth. Under static conditions, the growth rate of the cave fish were decreased significantly by mass during maintenance in small compared to large volumes, indicating that they exhibit space-dependent growth. However, the difference in growth rates measured by mass was not as pronounced as that seen in surface fish maintained under the same conditions. So this is the blind fish. So the blind fish did have less growth in the smaller containers, but it was not as dramatic of a difference as the fish that could see. I think better quality of water, varied types of nutrients is more important than actual space. The fish needs to be able to swim. I mean, I don't know, Mick. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just all important. All I know is I feed them the same, but if they're in a bigger tank, they just grow a lot faster. And I think the water quality is still good in both cases, in my opinion. So here we see the difference. We literally have a picture. And also, just to remind you, the confined spaces they were in, they had a larger water volume outside. Because I see Beto said, experiment with a 5G with a sump and a 5G without. That'd be a good experiment. But just to remember, like, they had fish in small containers with a larger volume of water outside. You know? So that is also something to think about. Plus, they were changing the water pretty regularly. So here we see a visual of the surface of the small volume fish versus the large volume of water fish, or larger containers. So on the left, we have the small volume. They all had the same initial weight and length at the start. In the left panels, these are fish raised in 5 or 10 milliliter containers. And on the right panels, they were in the 40 milliliter containers. Did you say how they gave the same amount of food to all test subjects? Let me see. I think that looks like they covered food later on, so we'll talk about it. Aquatic said, am I tripping or do they all look bad? I mean, they're all contained in small, they all look bad to me. But I mean, they're also out of water, so I don't really know. They might be dead, for all I know. But there is a big size difference between the ones on the left and the right, at least to me, for most of them. Now, what's interesting is, like, sorry, I just got distracted. Ask any breeder doing experiments without mentioning what kind of water is pre for research underway. Oxygen, nitrite, hard or soft water, temp. They said the temp earlier. I think it was 18 to 20 degrees Celsius. George Seculated said, on average, between 2 to 4 drops of brine shrimp are fed to fish each day. Okay, thank you for checking that. By the way, you guys only started trying to tear the thing apart once it started saying that the size of the tank mattered for fish growth. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but I just think it's funny. Wait, this is like the 4th paper. No one was going after the means and methods. George Seculated said, on average, 2 to 4 drops of fresh brine shrimp are fed to each fish per day. So that's cooked. Which part is cooked? Aquatic said, I don't think any of those fish are alive. Yeah, I think these are all dead fish. Length were observed in... Okay. Let me go back to reading. Well, they did mention the food. They mentioned the food, and they mentioned the water changes. So this is to test specifically if the size of what the fish are in made a difference. So they have all the fish in identical conditions except for the size of what they're inside of. So the fish are getting water changes, they're getting fed, they're also by themselves. The only difference is the size of the container that they're in. So all the things that you're mentioning, because it seems like that they were measuring those. Okay. This is the regression part. Growth rate by mass was increased in a larger volume compared to the small volume. However, this difference was not statistically significant. This is with the cave fish. The Pashon ones. So you can kind of see visually that the difference between them isn't that big. And it's also interesting to note they're the ones that have the least amount of eyes. Because this one below it, you can still kind of see their eyes. These ones, it's like nothing, right? It's kind of interesting. Furthermore, the Pashon cavefish raised in small volumes did not markedly increase their growth rate after transfer to larger volumes. Tanaja cavefish raised in smaller or large volumes failed to show significant reductions in growth rate when compared by mass or length under either static or dynamic conditions. So these are both cavefish. Now remember, the reason they're doing this is because they're both the same species of fish, but one's a cave population, one's not. So they're trying to see if the fish's ability to see or other things make a difference. JP said, not much for 4 times the container. In summary, the results show that space-dependent growth has regressed to different extents in 2 types of cavefish. Furthermore, the results indicate that growth by mass can be uncoupled from growth by length in the cavefish. The regression of space-dependent growth in cavefish which lacks functional eyes opens the possibility that SDG may be mediated by vision, since the experiments described above were conducted in light surface fish were able to visualize the size of their container and could have adjusted their growth accordingly. In contrast, cavefish would not have been able to adjust their growth based on vision. To determine whether vision is required for space-dependent growth, we examined the growth rate of surface fish raised in different volumes for 36 days in darkness. Since previous studies showed there were no differences in the results obtained under static or dynamic conditions, we used static conditions in these and all subsequent experiments. The levels of space-dependent growth in surface fish raised in darkness did not differ significantly from those raised in light. So based on these findings, we conclude that vision is not required for space-dependent growth. And here we have a graph of some numbers of the volume, the duration of days, and the mass and length. To investigate the inheritance of space-dependent growth, the mean growth rates of the surface X Pashon cavefish hybrids raised in small or large volumes of water were compared as described above. The results of experiments with F1 hybrids revealed that space-dependent growth at levels even more pronounced than those detected in surface fish in terms of mass and length. The results demonstrate that space-dependent growth has a genetic basis and is inherited as a dominant trait. So they crossed, I think it was the male of the surface fish with some female cavefish, if I remember correctly, to see if the space-dependent growth was inherited, since the surface fish seemed to have a more pronounced effect than the cavefish. In contrast to the F1 hybrids, F2 hybrids showed an intermediate space-dependent phenotype with significant space-dependent growth in terms of mass, but no significant space-dependent growth in terms of length. However, inspection of individual F2 hybrids indicated that there was a great deal of variation in decoupling in the space-dependent growth phenotype. Some individuals showed SDG in terms of mass, but not in terms of length, where others showed it in terms of length, but not in terms of mass, indicating that SDG segregated in the F2 generation. The results imply that space-dependent growth is a multigenic trait. To test the possibility that stress is involved in space-dependent growth, we compared the cortisol levels in individual surface fish and the cavefish raised in small or large volumes of water. Cortisol measurements were done at a 5-time points over 5-week span and compared to the basal levels in controls. Surface fish maintained in small volumes showed a 3 to 4-fold increase in cortisol when measured a day after the beginning of confinement relative to counterparts maintained in large volumes and controls. Cortisol levels were subsequently reduced and gradually returned to normal after the first 2 weeks of confinement. Cavefish showed a different cortisol profile when subjected to the same confinement conditions as surface fish. In contrast to surface fish, no significant elevation in cortisol was detected during the first 2 to 3 weeks following confinement, but a delayed increase was observed at 3 weeks post-confinement. Afterwards, cortisol levels returned to normal. The results implied that confined space induces an immediate stress response in surface fish, which is substantially delayed in the cavefish. The major finding of the present investigation is that the surface-dwelling form of the Mexican cavefish has an intrinsic capability to regulate its growth rate according to environmental space, which was termed space-dependent growth. It was also discovered that blind cavefish raised in different size environments under the same conditions either lack or exhibit a reduction in space-dependent growth. In Tanaja cavefish, SDG is absent when measured by mass or length. In Pichon cavefish, SDG is detectable by mass, although at lower levels than in surface fish, but is not detected when measured by length, indicating that the two growth parameters can be uncoupled during evolution. Along with the loss of eyes and pigmentation, space-dependent growth is an example of regressive phenotype that has appeared during cavefish evolution. Previous studies showed that telosts raised in higher stocking densities grew more slowly and eventually became stunted compared to those maintained in lower stocking densities. However, these results were insufficient to conclude whether or not there is intrinsic growth regulating processes in these species because populations, rather than individuals, were studied, and it is known that social interaction between fish can affect their growth. In contrast, here we report growth regulation as a function of environmental size in individual fish, and thus are able to rule out the effects of group interaction. Some fish don't hardly move, so would it be water volume that could stunt them and not confined spaces? Well, that's the thing. The containers, they got the... Ada. Sorry, my cat is like harassing me right now. Water volume and not confined spaces. My brain is just totally toast. I think the answer to your question is yes. So let's get through this and see if they address it. Ole. I think they're testing water volumes primarily here. Fish are less stressed, grow better. Same as for any animal? Probably. Yeah. I had to find where I was. Ada, you distracted me. Okay, they ruled out growth interactions. Furthermore, previous studies suggest that stunted growth of fish grown in confined environments was due to effects of water quality rather than the ability to intrinsically control growth rate according to space. Our studies address this issue by comparing growth in confinement under conditions in which the water was frequently manually changed, as well as in a flow-through system in which water was Dogs are the worst. I'm sorry, bro. This is crazy. In which water was continuously exchanged during the course of the experiment. Since no difference was observed in the effects of the environment, it's like the doorbell rings and the whole world just falls apart. It's crazy. Since no differences were observed in the effects of the environmental space on growth in the two conditions, we're able to conclude that the Mexican cavefish, the surface fish, have the capacity to regulate growth according to local environmental size. Fish Cafe said, Nick, tell your fish to pipe down, that's hilarious. And not due to the intrinsic water quality factors. To our knowledge, this is the first demonstration of intrinsic process that regulates growth based on environmental size and telos. In addition to being able to downregulate their growth rate in confined conditions, surface fish can compensate for lost growth by increasing their growth rate to high levels after being transferred from confined to unconfined environmental spaces. This remarkable plasticity in growth allows an individual to quickly recover from stunting, increasing their size, and remain competitive in the population. Similar compensatory growth has been reported in individual telos exposed to a period of poor nutrition. There we go. Pipe down, or it's the swap with you. That's hilarious. I'm taking them to the swap, but they don't pipe down. The response of growth to confined environment spaces is likely to occur in 2 steps. First, confined space is perceived. Your dog is not my dog. The dog got nothing to do with me. The teacher seems stressed. He'll get stunted. For God's sake, do something. So someone put the dog outside. Or I don't know. Can we get a rehoming, please? Okay. 2 steps. Confined space is perceived by a sensory system, and second, growth parameters are modulated according to received inputs. The regression of space-dependent growth in cavefish, which live in complete darkness and lack functional eyes, initially suggested that confined environmental space may be perceived by vision in surface fish. However, we found that the growth also occurs when surface fish are raised in the dark. Thus, the results demonstrate that the effects of confined space on growth are not manifest through sight, but must instead involve non-visual sensory receptors. The non-visual sensory receptors by which cavefish and surface fish perceive the environment remain to be identified. However, various types of non-visual sensory organisms, such as the lateral line of neuromast, are obvious candidates. The lateral line system detects water movement. The neuromast and the underlying neural circuitry could be used to perceive space by processing water movement reflected from the boundaries of the aqueous environment as fish swim to it. The lateral line sensory system is involved in mediating space-dependent growth. However, then the underlying changes must be qualitative rather than quantitative, because neuromasts are increased in size and number in cavefish compared to surface fish. A possibility for further consideration is that the regression of space-dependent growth in cavefish involves rewiring of the lateral line sensory circuitry, perhaps due to positive selection for neuromass-mediated vibration attraction behavior and or fundamental modifications in the responsive centers in the brain. Oh my god. So here we have the different changes in mass and length across the different fish. So the surface fish, in the 10 milliliter, it's about, it looks like about like 1.5, 1.4 milligrams in mass versus like 2.5 in the 40 milliliter. So that's a pretty big difference. And the F1 hybrids is even more pronounced. It's like 1.6 in the 5 milliliter. That was 10 milliliter versus 40 milliliter in the last one. In 5 milliliter versus 40 milliliter, it's 1.6 for the 5 milliliter, and then like almost 4.5 in the 40 milliliter. Kind of crazy. And then in these other hybrids, it's not big of a difference. Yeah, it's kind of crazy across the different fish, like how they hybridized it to see if it was. There's a lot of work put into this. You can like genetically select for space-dependent growth. That's wild. Okay, I'm gonna go down to the conclusion because, god damn it, how long have I been on this? Almost 2 hours on stunted fish growth. Oh, you guys are gonna hate me. We got it. We got to get through the other things. We got to. Let's read their conclusion here. This conclusion has filled major gaps in our understanding of how telos regulate their growth in a constrained spatial environment. First, we've shown how the individual surface fish can determine the size of their environment and regulate their growth rate accordingly. Decreased growth in limiting spatial conditions was not due to external factors such as food or water quality, but was instead due to the direct downregulation of growth rate mediated by sensory cues. We've shown that different populations of cavefish have regressed SDG to different degrees, perhaps as an adaptive response to their naturally constrained environments. Third, we have demonstrated that vision is not necessary, suggesting that other sensory systems must be used to determine the size of the local environment. Fourth, the study suggests that a cortisol-based stress response may operate in determining growth rates in response to confinement, but does not solely determine the presence or absence of space-dependent growth. Lastly, we've shown that space-dependent growth has a largely genetic basis. The study opens the possibility of further research that could provide more insight into a novel phenotype that allows telos to exhibit remarkable growth plasticity in response to the size of their environment. So, I thought that was pretty interesting. Link is pinned in the chat for now. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Oh my gosh. I think fish and their growth rate being affected by the size of the water volume or whatever that is. It's a common anecdotal thing. I think a lot of these have some levels of truth to them. When you go into stuff like this, there's like genetic bases and things like that. That tells you it probably, well, we see it in this, it differed by populations of fish. So it's not like you can just take this and apply it to every fish out there, because there's probably some fish that can grow normally in confined spaces. But at the very least, it's a start. Mick said, the Norwegian salmon in my stomach just complained on the limited space down there. Bruh. Great rundown, Nick. Some good basics. So the next glowfish, apparently, is the Starfire Red Gourami. Okay? Starfire Red Gourami. They approved this. Come on. Red Pearl Gourami RPG 2025 rDNA construct in Trichopodes leary. You can see it here. The FDA website. And this came to my... I saw someone post like a picture of it. What was supposedly it. Because they said it was like coming soon or whatever. It was the Fish Factory on Facebook. I don't know if this is an actual photo or if it's speculative, right? But, I mean, look, glowfish, you kind of have an idea of what it's going to look like. But apparently, yeah, glowfish pearl gourami are on the way. And a glow green angel. Holy. They also added galactic purple to the line of angelfish. Ooh. So if you want to look at the list of fish approved for glowfish, we got this FDA website link that I put in the chat. And honestly, the longer we got the glowfish going on, the more I don't mind them. I'm not gonna lie. The longer we got them going on, the more I just I don't mind. It's kind of, it's a cool thing. It's whatever. It's not my style, but like, it's kind of interesting. So here's the IGAs in aquarium fish intended to cause fish to fluoresce. We got red danio, purple danio, blue danio, orange danio, green danio, orange tetra, green tetra, pink tetra. The species for this is Gymnocorymbus chironetsi. Let's look that up. Yeah, the black skirt tetra, okay. Purple tetra, blue tetra. JP Jeffrey said maybe you should do how to make glowfish stream. I'm realizing JP is the biggest troll in the chat of all time. This dude exists just to say... He just will say anything, bro. He would just say anything. He wants me to learn how to, like, read. This is way too much. Cuttlefish said, way better than short bodies and balloon stuff. I agree. I would own... if a glowfish looked right, I would own it. I think the longfin glowfish danios are awesome. I would buy those. I'd breed them, and I'd sell them illegally. I'm telling glowfish, go ahead and arrest me. If I buy the longfin danios, I'll find a way to sell them or trade them or something. You know what I mean? I will. Arrest me. I got nothing to live for anyway. I need free food. Put me in jail. You're not gonna do it? I dare you to catch me. Alright, green barb, red barb, purple barb, orange barb. Look, that's the damn Dr. Seuss book up in here. Those are tiger barbs. Okay, that they use for that. I've seen the hybrid ones with glow beta and green overlay. It's pretty interesting. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Mick, you wanna... I think glowfish... Are glowfish not banned in some other countries? I thought they were banned in a few other countries. Okay, we got the orange shark, purple shark, blue shark, green shark. That's Epiloxyrhinchus frenatus. One day I'll learn how to read. Yep, that's the rainbow shark. Okay. Then we got beta splendens, green beta, orange beta, pink beta, and purple beta. Orange catfish, there's Corydoras aeneas. Pink catfish, green catfish. Then we got Pristilla maxillaris, the X-ray tetra. Orange, green, purple, red. And then we got the 3 angelfish colors, red, green, and purple. Pedophyllum scalaire. Purple glowfish. Is there a picture of the purple one? Galactic purple. That's what they call the color. Well, it may not actually be out yet then. They're approved for it, but Starfire red. Honestly, Glofish, the website is kind of lit. Ordering straight from Glofish, like, bro, orders over 114, free shipping. I mean, like, come on. What's the problem? Now, where's, like, the longfin ones at? Where's the longfin Glowdanios? How do I get some of those? Like, I don't really understand what's going on here. You need a Glofish Dovey? Mick says, as long as none of them enter the streams and water in nature, but that ship has already sailed. I mean, even if they did, I guess it's not the end of the world. This is kind of weird. Glofish sells normal fish? Guys, what's going on here? Stop! Breaking news! You can buy an albino bushy-nosed pleco breeding pair on the Glofish website for $90. What the fuck? And the picture ain't even of a pair. It looks like 2 dead fish. Actually, they used that, like, this is crazy. I hate when people do the cutout photos for fish too, by the way. I hate that. You can buy normal albino cories, 3 for $15. 3 black ruby barbs for $16, 3 count. Black skirt tetras, 3 count. You can buy Bolivian rams from Glofish. You can buy a normal bushy-nosed pleco breeding pair for $90. Jesus, bro. A companion collection, 11 count for $100. What does this come with? 6 lake inlay danios. It's kind of nice. 4 starlight white tetras. And 1 common pleco. God damn. Nick, they gotta be in the Florida waterways by now. It may change the whole diatope, so it is a big thing. Well, yeah, but I don't think the glowfish are gonna. Well, first of all, the glowfish, their color, I don't think lends them to surviving too well. Second of all, they're gonna cause the same amount of damage as any other invasive species. You know what I mean? So, like, yeah, any aquarium fish being in wild is, yes, bad. I just meant I don't think them being glowfish is any bigger of a deal than if the non-glowfish version of them made it in. If anything, the glowfish version of them probably makes it a lot worse for their ability to survive in nature. JP said, new place to put on the new arrivals is the glowfish. That's hilarious. And $90, you can get 6 glowfish cories. They kind of look absolutely hideous, whatever these are. Single color set. Can you pick your colors? Okay, green. They need to change the first photo to not be this. I think it's supposed to be orange or pink, but they just look like demon cories and not in a good way. Yeah, the green is kind of cool. The yellow is, I think the green's the coolest. Oh, they got a video. Wow, moonrise pink. Well, under the black light, it looks kind of cool, but yeah, this looks better. Okay, the yellow looks all right. That looks fine. That looks fine. Not for me, but it looks fine. Chris Ladd says glowfish get a lot of undeserved hate. Honestly, bro, this is the real hate behind the glowfish. You want to be honest what I think it is? People are very threatened by the glowfish because they look cool. I'm sorry, bro. Like, they look cool. To most people, they look cool. And if you're someone that likes normal fish, especially if you sell normal fish, then them making a glowfish version of a fish that you already sell, that you know that they have the patent to, is not great. Because they got a glowfish version of all the popular fish, and you cannot sell them without buying it from them. And then yeah, it puts you in a bad position. You know, people are probably gonna want the glowfish version of a lot of these fish. So I think most of the people mad, like, There is some just like traditionalism, but also like people that sell fish, they don't want to see Glofish be popular because Glofish keeps making goldfish versions of all these different fish, and that's going to cut into their margins, or they're going to have to, buy Glofish from them. Mick says, same as for any new fish introduced, but we'll get the answer in 20 to 30 years. Want to gamble on future kids' survival? I don't, but I'm more concerned about other things when it comes to the environment. I mean, definitely don't release fish into the wild, but the source of our natural problems is mostly human related, like dumping other things into the water, perhaps. The Glofish Barb Halloween set 6 count, that's $65. That's a bit of a better value. It comes with 2 galactic purple, 2 electric green, and 2 sunburst orange. But what about the normal fish? We got a Glofish April Fool's set, 10 count. This is a horrible quality photo. They gotta fix this. Gosh. A playful surprise. These fish may not fluoresce like Glofish live fish. They bring a graceful charm. 10 elegant fish with shimmering white bodies. Okay, I'm kind of confused on this. The main thing you can control is not being the fish in the wild, that's for sure. Glofish Be My Valentine set, 8 count. Yo, can I send this to someone to be my Valentine? Like, does this work? Oh, this got one of the best reviews. This got 12 reviews, 5 stars, all of them. The first order I ordered was very sad. They didn't make it fit in the mail for 4 days because of water. I sent a message to the company to refund my money, so I tried again. In today, doing well, came on time. 5 stars. I set up a 20-gallon fish tank. I love how it turned out. I got 2 separate shipments. Great luck with both. Okay. Interesting. Their website is got a very bizarre feeling to it. I'm not gonna lie. Like, what's going on, man? It's just like the fish. It's kind of like bright. Hard to see what's going on. The Glofish Candy Cane collection, man. They'll name something anything. So you get 1 Starfire Red large angelfish, 5 Starlight White Tetras, and 3 Moonrise Pink Corridors. Nick said, will Glofish attract mosquitoes? Easy food? I don't know. I mean, they're originally made to be what? Testing for water quality or something? Let's see. I'm not really seeing the candy cane here. I guess the Cories are kind of red. These are white, and this is like... I get what they're going for, but... Okay, we got a Christmas Daniel set. This is a red and green. So, they sell a couple of random... Wait, they got a branded food? A Daphnia treat, 0.5. 0.5 ounces for $5. It's out of stock. They have a Glofish Daphnia treat, though. Fascinating. Most of this is just a bunch of collections. A bunch of collections. So they have, like, basically tank kits. Like, okay, put this in. This one randomly comes with upside down catfish. 3 longfin tetras and 3 upside down catfish. Yo. What in the world? Wow, Glofish patterned starfish 1 count large, $100. Wow. Okay. Well. Yeah, I don't think they put up the photos or anything of the pearl gourami or the new galactic purple or whatever. But I'm kind of curious what the gourami looks like. I suggest you buy all those posters instead of the real fish. Oh, Mick, are you like a real Glofish hater? You can buy just Lake Inlay Daniels for a 5 count for $40, or you can buy Red Eye Tetras, a 3 count for $10. Rusty red bushy nose pleco breeding pair for $125. Wow. Okay. Or you can buy one upside down catfish large for $25 or 3 upside down catfish for $40 from Glofish. Wow. I had no idea. I had no idea. Reintroducing the Sunset Thick Lip Gourami. Okay. It's gonna be kind of crazy if Glofish just starts getting into just selling fish in general. That'd be kind of wild. Like, they got the Glofish, but then they're like, hey, let's sell the other fish too. Like let's make all these community kits. Glofish companions. There we go. That's what they call them. Glofish companions. Dwarf neon rainbow fish set. Okay. This is kind of... I didn't realize they were doing this, but it makes sense. So you have the Glofish, and then you have fish they think go well with the Glofish. Okay. Will they start glowing when turning back to swimming the common way? I don't know. Well, let's get into this. Let's get into the next topic. We got to get through the post-mortality paper, and then I'm going to go over some events coming up soon. Okay. All you Glofish haters, man. Glofish, rise up. Let's replace all fish with the Glofish. Just every single fish. Every Epistogramma Nisidai. Glowfished. Can you imagine? Yo, Mick might actually have to go to like the factory and protest. I think he might burn down the factory if that happened. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think that Mick is gonna stand for the glowfishification of Epistos. Okay, so let's take a look at this. I thought this was interesting. Anything disease related and like the chain of, you know, fish and things like that. SC said, is this kid still talking? What's up? 186 said, Glowfish will certainly help the industry by bringing more young people into the hobby. I think so. My thing with the Glowfish is I don't personally feel any negative about them. Like, some of them look cool to people, and that's fine. I hate short-bodied and balloon fish a lot more. So with those, I see a lot of negatives. I think they suck. With Glowfish, it's just like, most of them are just not my style, you know? But I just don't see I really don't see the negatives compared to some other things people breed. I don't hate Glowfish, I just strongly dislike their creators, quotation mark, that's hilarious. So we got, this I thought was interesting. Microbiome collapse in the ornamental fish trade, a hidden driver of post-purchase mortality. This is coming out the School of Science and Technology at Hong Kong Metropolitan University. And also the Department of Food Science and Nutrition, Faculty of Science, the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, and a bunch of authors coming in here. Chris Ladd said, "Oh man, I love my fantail goldfish." Yeah, I really dislike goldfish. Just they freak me out. Especially like the ones with the big eyes. That's so wrong. Yeah, the goldfish. I think many goldfish strains disturb me much more than glowfish. I think goldfish strains, a lot of them are like peak dystopia. Like, you literally just got some malformed prisoners in your house. They've been genetically tortured. Here we go. Let's get into this, by the way. Let's get into this. So, microbiome collapse, a hidden driver of post-purchase mortality. Most of us in the chat, in the stream, have purchased fish. Many of us, I'm sure, have experienced fish we purchased dying after we purchased them, unfortunately. This is talking about basically the effects of prophylactic antibiotic use in high-density ornamental aquaculture. This apparently aims to mitigate infections, yet it's hypothesized to induce severe gut microbiome dysbiosis, contributing to the high post-mortality of goldfish. Speaking of goldfish, purchased from retail stores by end customers. This study utilized 16S RNA gene amplicon sequencing, a high rapid and high resolution tool to characterize gut bacterial communities in 6 goldfish, Carcia serratus, sourced from antibiotic intensive retail market in Hong Kong, SAR, China. Diversity metrics were compared to unexposed reference controls and experimentally antibiotic exposed cyprinid groups from published datasets. Market source goldfish showed a profound collapse in alpha diversity, far lower than the controls and experimental group. The microbiota exhibited extreme oligodominance by Cetobacterium and Vibrio, with near total loss of beneficial commensal taxa. Let's get into it. The intro is basically, yes, ornamental fish trade, valued, it makes money, so we're justifying making this paper because we're talking about something that affects a lot of money, so this is worth funding. Thank you. Okay, we postulated that prolonged multi-class antibiotic exposure across the ornamental fish supply chain is associated with altered gut microbial diversity and composition, potentially reducing the microbiome stability following transfer to antibiotic-free home aquaria. To address this gap, we characterized the gut bacterial communities of goldfish, a species selected for its status in the most traded ornamental fish globally, and its established role as a model organism in telos physiological research. The animal study protocol was approved by the Research Ethics Committee. Oh, thank goodness. 186, I love goldfish. Too bad they're the cows of the hobby and need large tanks. Oh, yes. Fish 1 to 3 were obtained from one retailer and had been housed in the same holding tank. Fish 4 to 6 were obtained from a second retailer and held in a separate tank. This retail hub serves as a representative site for intensive ornamental trade, where prophylactic antibiotics, tetracyclines, and fluoroquinolones are routinely administered to holding tanks. Previously, environmental monitoring of tank and carriage water at this location has confirmed the presence of multiple antimicrobial residues, including doxycycline, oxtetracycline, tetracycline, enrofloxacin, and oxalic acid. The purchased goldfish were transported to the laboratory in the original package bins, filled with carriage water and atmospheric gas, and processed within 60 minutes of arrival. River Pottery says, "What's up to 86?" Sample collection. Fish were euthanized by immersion in trichine methane sulfonate until complete cessation of opercular movement. Dissection and sampling were performed using a septic technique on a bench wiped with 70% ethanol and covered with fresh sterile aluminum foil. A Bunsen burner flame was kept continuously burning nearby throughout the procedure to create a localized sterile air curtain and reduce airborne contamination. All instruments, including forceps, scissors, scalpels, and inoculation loops, were autoclaved or sterile single-use items and were additionally flame sterilized by a brief passage through the burner flame immediately and before or after each use. Okay, so sampling other things to make sure there's no contamination going on here. Then they extracted the DNA. And let's look at the results. Sequencing depth after quality filtering, okay, blah, blah, blah. They did the mucus sampling. They're looking at the diversity of everything in there. And they found the gut microbiomes of retail source ornamental fish exhibited a high degree of dysbiosis. Dysbiosis. Which is an imbalance in the different microorganisms living together in a microbiome in the gut. It appears considerably more severe than that reported in controlled laboratory antibiotic trials. That's kind of crazy. The gut microbiomes of retail-sourced ornamental goldfish had more of a gut imbalance than those in controlled laboratory antibiotic trials. Okay. Alpha diversity collapsed to near undetectable levels. across hindgut mucosa and digesta samples, with communities dominated by only a handful of taxa and minimal phylogenetic evenness. These values are markedly lower than the 2.0 to 5.5 range commonly reported for healthy cyprinids and fall even below those recorded in short-term antibiotic-exposed fish, in which partial diversity typically persists. Principal coordinates analysis based on Bray-Curtis dissimilarity further supported this interpretation. Market samples clustered tightly in a region of coordinated space, clearly distinct from both untreated controls and experimentally dosed groups, suggesting a fundamentally and potentially irreversible restructuring of the microbial ecosystem rather than a transient reduction in richness. This dysbiotic state was characterized by extreme oligodominance, primarily involving Cetobacterium and Vibrio, which frequently co-occurred and collectively dominated the hindgut communities of market-sourced fish. Cetobacterium is traditionally recognized as a beneficial core symbiote in freshwater tellus, contributing to host health through the production of vitamin B and acetate. The unusually high relative abundances recorded here therefore deviate from the depletion typically recorded under acute antibiotic stress, and instead point to selective survival under chronic multi-class antibiotic regimes characteristic of the ornamental supply chain. Prolonged exposure to multiple antimicrobials appears to favor tolerant anaerobes such as Cetobacterium, which carries reported tolerance traits relevant to bile in certain antibiotics, including vancomycin, which systemically eliminating the phytogenetically diverse commensal taxa responsible for nutrient metabolism, mucosal integrity, and colonization resistance. Beto says 186, if you need the space, you could always stunt your goldfish. Let's go. Let's go. Let's freaking go. And then the conclusion. Ornamental goldfish sourced from antibiotic-intensive retail chains harbor severely depauperate gut microbiomes characterized by collapsed alpha diversity, distinct community structuring, and profound taxonomic simplification. This dysbiotic state compromises microbial resilience and host physiological homeostasis, likely serving as a primary driver of the elevated post-purchase mortality observed during the transition to clean home aquaria. These preliminary findings underscore the long-term detrimental impact of prophylactic antibiotic reliance on the ecological health of fish gut, highlighting the urgent need for large-scale multi-site studies. The inclusion of microbiome assessment as a routine health indicator would provide a quantitative benchmark for animal welfare, enabling stakeholders to move beyond visual inspections and proactively identify individuals at high risk of post-purchase mortality. The study also emphasizes the need for alternative health management strategies transitioning towards microbiome supportive husbandry, incorporating probiotics, prebiotics, and enhanced biosecurity, which holds significant potential to improve survival rates, align the industry with global health security standards, and ensure the environmental sustainability of ornamental fish. Now, I thought this was interesting because I think there's a lot of fish that are associated with post-purchase mortality. And the idea that they just have a completely collapsed microbiome that just, is not able to help them once they get to the fish tank and it's not full of antibiotics or whatnot kind of makes a lot of sense to me. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is something like German rams, I feel like. Some opistos. I don't know. A lot of the fish that people talk about, like the blackwater fish and stuff like that, I kind of think about that. Like, because if you think about it, like any fish that's super sensitive to those kind of things, I bet they hit with antibiotics like crazy because it's like a fish known for being prone to bacterial diseases and stuff like that. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. So there you go. Microbiome collapse and post-purchase mortality. Put the link in the chat. It's pinned. Now real quickly to wrap things up. This is like, if you missed the stream live, it's perfect. This is the perfect stream to fall asleep to. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, we gotta get back into things. This is a good week for fish events, though. It's a good week for fish events. So first of all, if you're in the area tomorrow, March 21. Pretty big event. This is in Mechanicsville, Virginia. So if you're in the area, you can consider coming through to this. This is the all-day spring fling for the James River Aquarium Society. The lectures start at 9:30 a.m. God damn, that's early as hell. 9:30 a.m. and it will be, that's early for me on a Saturday. I gotta be at the meeting by 9:30. I won't be so late, but I'm not gonna be able to make it to this one. But we got LRB is speaking there, and then Corey from Aquarium Co-op is speaking there too. So pretty big double header of speakers. And then on top of that, they're gonna have a giant ass auction going through, and there's a lot of cool stuff on there. That's on my group auctions, so it's harder for me to go through on stream and stuff. But yeah, so that's tomorrow. Lectures at 9:30, and auction starts half an hour after the last lecture, so whenever that ends. They say this is from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So if you go by 9, prepare for a potentially long day. So 2 big speakers, and then you got a big old all-day auction to follow. Now, also kind of in the area, this is Virginia, going up a bit. Lancaster County, not tomorrow. Excuse me. No, it is tomorrow. My bad. I gotta go to the right page. I keep going to the one Facebook page where like nothing is updated, and then I get confused. But let me go to the right page. Right. That Pet Place. They're having a That Pet Place swap tomorrow. So maybe Mechanicsville, Virginia is a little far for you. You know what I mean? It's a little bit of ways to go. But PA, Lancaster County, might be just around the corner for you. So I can't make it down to James River, but I want to do something on Saturday. It's a little later. It opens up to the public from at 11 a.m. It's going 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And this is a swap at That Pet Place. And we got live goods only, which is interesting. They switched to live goods only, but I kind of feel like that must have to do something with the fact they have it in a store, right? That kind of makes sense. They got Roy Allen, Small World Aquatics, Joel Antkowiak, Ebo's Fancy Guppies and Plecos, Silver Moon Aquatics, Valley Aquatics, Tropical Basement, Charles Aquatics, BP Fish Room / Brady Phillips, Steve Brose, LJ's Shrimp, Mike's Bulgarian Green. Got some great stuff. Angel Dave, Dorothy Whelan, Snyder Aquatics, Leask Aquatics, H-Town Aquatics, H-Town down, Danny Corman, Siegs, Bettas, and more. Hag's Life, Just One More Fish. What's up, Jesse? You gonna go through? Samurai Aquatics and Water Gap Tropicals is the lineup for tomorrow. Society events. So yes, we've got a lot going on. We've got quite a lot going on tomorrow. Maybe none of those things are close to you, though. That's fine. That's totally fine. Nothing close to you. We got more options. Okay, we have a couple more options. Actually, tomorrow is very busy. It's a very busy day when it comes to fish stuff. I'm not going to lie. There's a Saltwater Expo. tcmoss.org. Saltwater Expo 2026. This is in Minneapolis. The Doubletree by Hilton, Minneapolis Airport. Noon to 4 p.m. We got the Youngstown Area Tropical Fish Society. That's also meeting tomorrow. Diamond, Ohio. The spring auction. Auction starts at 11 a.m. Oh my gosh. We got the Grand Valley Aquarium Society spring auction also tomorrow. This is Wyoming, Michigan. What the hell? That's so confusing. Wyoming, Michigan. They want me to think I don't know where this thing is. I got confused. But yes, that also starts at 11 and goes until the last bag is sold. So you can check that out if you're near Wyoming, Michigan. And we got this stuff all over. We even got the Greater Detroit Aquarium Society Spring Tropical Fish Auction. That's also tomorrow, Saturday, March 21st. Royal Oaks, Michigan. Man, everything is happening tomorrow. This is kind of wild. Yeah, also begins at 11 at the Royal Oak Community Center. Come on, what? There's got to be more. Yeah, the Tropical Fish Club of Burlington, South Burlington, Vermont. That is also tomorrow. Oh my gosh. One of you guys got to be going to some of these, right? What are the odds that none of you are going to any of these? Yeah, this is noon to 3 p.m. is the Vermont one. Okay, seems kind of cool. That is a frag. Sorry, the Vermont one is Aquarium Fish Frag and Reptile Expo. That's kind of cool. Then Sunday, Bloomington, Illinois. We got the Central Illinois Aquarium Fish Swap. That is Sunday. So look, you can do a double header weekend. I mean, road trip. Yeah. Let's check auction fish. Is there any other auctions going on this weekend? You know of any items? I'm a bit far away, Mick said. Yeah, you're a little bit far away. I don't know of any items. I haven't. The my group auctions ones I haven't checked out. We could do some auction review after these auctions conclude. It looks like there's 2 happening on auction.fish. The BFKA March auction supposedly is happening. What's up, Johnny Best? Yeah, we'll have to see. Mick said 5 to 6 events. Are they close? A lot of these aren't really that close to each other. No, I wouldn't say. But hey, some of the events going on. What I know I was gone for a while. I'm gonna try and be streaming regularly again. This weekend I'm not gonna be around, so don't expect anything this weekend. But yeah, I'm gonna try and stream more regularly. I'm gonna keep it working. I'm gonna keep it going. We're doing the thing. I'm here. I'm trying to get back into it. So a bit of a just usual reading start. Nothing too crazy. Gregory Schultz, this is what it's all about, y'all. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. Mick said over here there's a dart frog meeting tomorrow. Oh man. Hardest working fish stream unpaused. We're here. So more streams, more energy. I just gotta work myself back into shape. But I appreciate you guys hanging out. Thank you, Johnny Best, for stopping by. I'm just about to shut down. Mick been holding it down. 186 been holding it down. A couple fish been holding it down. Ani K was holding it down. Cam Jam was holding it down. Even Jeff was popping up in here for a second. Moneyless Maven, of course, coming through. Even Ben stopped by to drop a couple of emojis. You know how Ben goes. Beto and JP Jeffries, they've just been plotting how to stunt all of their fish. Ethics be damned. So if a new strain of dwarf fish start coming out, we know who's responsible. Steve did come by and say hi. Dwarf Cyclidia, of course. River Life Pottery coming through. Appreciate you stopping by. Jeff Rowe came through for a moment. Chris Lads, Glofish Evangelist in the building. Appreciate you. SC, apparently Glofish are the devil's work according to SC. Well, he did a good job, not gonna lie. JP Jeffrey says, thanks so much, Nix. Great stunted dad. What the heck? SVC said, good stream. Appreciate that. Thank you, my friend. We're here. We're streaming. We're back. And I'll be back again soon. So I'm going to keep it the goodbye short because this has been in my tanks. And I am out. Where's this shrimp going? Where is it going? Is it out too?